But now he's looking for reinforcement from Robyn and Meri. Let's build a united front against Janelle and her decisions.
I'm struggling here with...
They told us Meri was the broken one, the one who stayed too long, who begged too much, who faded quietly into the corner of every scene while Cody and Robyn danced center stage, cloaked in spiritual superiority and soft-spoken righteousness. But what if that was the biggest lie of all? What if the woman they painted as desperate was actually the one holding the whole narrative together with grace and quiet endurance? What if the silence wasn't weakness, but suppression? Years of redirection, years of gaslighting, years of watching the camera pan past her grief and land. Instead, on Robyn's crocodile tears and Cody's escalating rage disguised as passion, it all erupted this week. When the internet exploded at 2:14 a.m., a time that now feels tattooed on the hearts of thousands of fans, when a blurry, shaky, grainy 2-minute video surfaced on Reddit without context, without music, without filters, or production polish, but with more power than 18 seasons of scripted confessional spins. Because what that video caught wasn't fiction, it was a whisper war. A secret strategy, the unraveling of the stable couple image TLC had poured millions into protecting. The hallway was dim, the carpet unmistakably from a backstage set. And the whispers low, rushed, terrified not of exposure, but of Meri. Robyn's voice came first. Fragile in its panic, but razor sharp in its intent. She's planning something. Meri's been talking to people. People who support her leaving. And then that terrifying pause, that breath that carried every unsaid truth, and the words that followed shattered whatever illusion was left. If she goes public with the truth, you won't survive this. In Cody's voice, that cold, guttural growl fans know too well, slicing through the audio like a knife. She doesn't have the guts. She's been threatening this for years. We'll bury her. That was the moment, not just for the fandom, but for history. In that moment, everything shifted. Fans didn't need HD. They didn't need confirmation. They knew those voices. They knew the tactics. They remembered the patterns. From Robyn's first tearful entrance to the family in season 1 to Meri being publicly shamed during the infamous catfishing scandal, to her being labeled emotionally unstable when she grieved the loss of her mother. Her marriage and her self-worth. Fans had been fed a one-sided story, edited to maintain Cody and Robyn's curated control. But this wasn't just a marriage breakdown, it was a coordinated erasure. And now, that erasure was unraveling. TikTok lit up with side-by-side breakdowns. YouTubers zoomed into every frame. Twitter, now called X, ignited into digital warfare. This wasn't about a show anymore. This was about systemic silencing, about power, control, religious manipulation, and a woman who had finally found her voice when no one expected her to. And then came the next explosion. A yellow sticky note, handwritten, crooked, unassuming, but devastating. Just 5 words. Don't discuss this just yet. It's posted by Meri herself, without a caption, without a hashtag. Just that ghostly note, barely visible on the corner of a faded lease agreement from her Las Vegas home. It wasn't dramatic, it didn't need to be, because those 5 words weren't just a footnote. They were a receipt. Proof that silence wasn't just personal, it was enforced, coordinated, controlled. Robyn's signature handwriting, matched by fans to old Christmas tags and holiday cards, confirmed what many had suspected. Meri wasn't allowed to speak. Not on camera, not in real life, not even in her own home. And while Robyn painted herself season after season as the victim of misunderstanding, the peacekeeper, just trying to unify the family, this note revealed the machinery behind her image. Quiet censorship, the hush-hush cover-ups, and the performative sadness hiding a far more strategic role. And while TLC edited and cropped Meri's pain into digestible clips, the truth was simmering off camera until it boiled. Until she boiled. And when she finally spoke, really spoke, it wasn't on a talk show. It wasn't a tell-all, and it wasn't with a glam team or soft lighting. It was raw. Meri on a porch swing, gray sweater, snow falling behind her. No production, no crew, no edits. Just her, a single camera, a single light, and the voice of a woman who had been silent for too long. "I gave everything for this family," she said softly, her voice catching not with performance but with the weight of 30 years of swallowed pain. "When it hurt, I stayed quiet. When I was made to feel invisible, I smiled." There was no anger, no revenge, just devastating clarity. She didn't name names, she didn't have to. Her truth was loud enough. She looked directly into the camera and whispered, "I'm not unstable, I'm free." And with that, the entire narrative shattered. Comments flooded in, not just from fans, but from survivors of emotional manipulation, religious trauma, and women who recognized themselves in Meri's grief. In her stillness, in the unbearable weight of being erased in your own life, her quiet honesty hit harder than any season finale. It cut deeper than any tell-all. It peeled back the curtain on the version of Sister Wives TLC had sold to the world and revealed what was underneath. A power dynamic built on fear, favoritism, and image control. And Cody, he cracked. Reports from production insiders say filming was immediately halted. He stormed off set. Security had to step in. He was yelling about betrayal, about leaks, about people turning against him. But no one touched Meri. No one tried to stop her, 'cause they knew. They all knew the dam had broken. And the fallout didn't stop with fans. Former producers started liking cryptic tweets. Anonymous Reddit insiders came forward. Even Janelle, in a brief but pointed Instagram story, posted a photo of a coffee mug with the words, "You're not crazy. You were gaslit." And the caption? Just a winking emoji. Christine, now happily remarried, reposted Meri's porch video with a single heart. Silence from Robyn, silence from Cody, but silence now reads like guilt. And the deeper fans dig, the darker it gets. Leaked emails from 2015 show Meri was pushed into signing NDAs that no other wife was asked to sign. Screenshots reveal her segments were often cut or re-edited last minute. One particularly damning behind-the-scenes clip shows Meri being asked to reshoot a confessional because it didn't match the narrative we're focusing on this season. And that narrative, the rise of Robyn, the fall of Meri, a script, a pattern, a power play disguised as family values. And now the cracks are visible. TLC is reportedly in crisis mode. Advertisers are pulling back. Fan petitions are circulating, demanding justice, transparency, and accountability, not just for Meri, but for all the women who were manipulated under the guise of spiritual unity. What began as a family docuseries has now become a cautionary tale of religious exploitation, gendered silencing, and the perils of image over integrity. And still through all of it, Meri remains calm. She's not doing press tours, not writing a revenge memoir though. Insiders say publishers are circling fast. She's simply showing up on her own terms, posting raw thoughts, sharing unfiltered moments, laughing again, wearing color, hugging Leon in public, smiling with her eyes, not just her mouth. And the fans, they've rallied. Her Instagram following has doubled in 2 weeks. Her Badon breakfast is booked out through spring. Merch is popping up with quotes like, "Don't discuss this just yet," and "I'm not unstable, I'm free." Because what Meri did wasn't just brave. It was revolutionary. She didn't just reclaim her voice, she destroyed the machinery that once silenced it. And in doing so, she's opened the door for countless others. For women in religious communities, in manipulative marriages, in workplaces where their voices are minimized and dismissed. Her story is no longer about Cody. It's no longer about Robyn. It's about liberation. Quiet, dignified, undeniable liberation. It's the kind that doesn't need approval. It's the kind that doesn't need a storyline. The kind that resonates because it's real. This wasn't the Meri we were told to ignore. This is the Meri who never left. The Meri who endured, the Meri who was rising, and the truth. It was never hiding. It was being hidden, but not anymore. You're watching Starspill USA, and this is your reckoning. Hit that subscribe button, because if you thought this sticky note was the end, just wait. The real story is only beginning. Only beginning.
I feel like this season you finally made that decision to separate it. I want us to watch the clip because there was a certain word that was used.
She hadn't just benefited from Meri's silence. She had designed it, crafted it, choreographed it like a performance for a stage she never truly stepped off of. Because while the world saw a woman in soft cardigans and teary confessionals, begging for unity, what they missed, what they weren't supposed to see, was the mastermind behind the curtain, Robyn Brown, the so-called peacemaker, who played the long game with a smile and stitched loyalty with legal thread. For years, viewers thought Robyn was simply the last wife who entered a struggling family, a misunderstood spiritual woman trying to hold it all together while others left. But the truth that emerged this year, the raw, exposed truth, ripped from the shadows by a single sticky note and a trembling late-night hallway recording. It's far more strategic, far more devastating, and far more deliberate. Robyn hadn't just been the recipient of Meri's silence, she had enforced it, engineered it behind the scenes with softly spoken manipulation and quiet paperwork. The woman who wept on cue and played the victim with practiced vulnerability was the same woman sending cease and desist letters to independent podcast creators who had the audacity to reach out to Meri for an interview. Not national outlets, not tabloid media, just small platforms run by women trying to give other women a voice. And what did Robyn's camp do? They threatened them politely, legally, strategically. The letter accused them of soliciting content that could damage the Brown family's brand. Legalese, sure, but the fans weren't stupid. They saw it for what it was, not protection, but control. Damage control masquerading as concern. Image preservation masquerading as family values. It confirmed what many suspected. Robyn wasn't just a participant, she was a choreographer. The silent puppeteer behind Cody's rants, the architect of a narrative where she was always the victim and everyone else, Meri, Christine, Janelle, were either unstable, bitter, or disloyal. While Cody raised his voice, Robyn never had to. She weaponized her tears, her faith, her femininity. She learned early on that being underestimated was her greatest strength. The contracts. She knew how to use them. The editors. She knew what scenes worked. She didn't need to yell because Cody did it for her. She didn't need to confront Meri because TLC would cut around the silence. But now, the cracks were showing. And with the release of the sticky note 5 haunting words, in Robyn's own handwriting, "Don't discuss this just yet," the illusion shattered. It was her signature, her fingerprint on the muzzle that had silenced Meri for years. And the moment it surfaced, fans began combing back through every season, every scene, looking not at what was said, but what was missing. Who wasn't in the room, who wasn't speaking, who had suddenly gone quiet. And then it got worse. The show that had always operated on the illusion of balance was suddenly thrown into chaos when Cody, the self-appointed patriarch, the man who had once declared on camera, "I am the head of this family," exploded on set in a meltdown so unhinged it brought production to a halt. Supposed to be a routine filming day, one of those glossy roundtable confessionals where the cast recaps emotions in tidy, edited bites, but when a producer casually asked about Meri's viral video, the one where she finally spoke on her own terms from her snowy porch, everything broke. Cody snapped. His voice, always on the edge of performative outrage, now fully lost its mask. "She lacks gratitude," he shouted. "She wants to burn everything I gave her." For what? A story? A victim complex? His face turned red. Hands clenched, pacing, pointing at the cameras, at the crew, at no one in particular. Furious, not because he'd been wronged, but because the control was slipping. And this time, no one tried to protect him. The crew froze. Cast Christine, Janelle, even producers sat in stunned silence. Cody kept going, his tirade escalating until security was called and he was physically escorted off the set. No public statement followed. No TLC press release. But within 48 hours, an internal document leaked one line that said it all. Due to confrontation with production personnel and non-compliance with filming requirements, Meri Brown will be temporarily removed from Sister Wives production for a duration of 18 days. Just 18 days on paper, but symbolically, a collapse. For the first time in the history of the franchise, filming moved forward without Cody. And in that brief vacuum, something seismic shifted. Editors, once careful to preserve his image as the misunderstood but well-meaning patriarch, began combing through archival footage not to protect him, but to reveal what had been buried. Old clips resurfaced. Unused scenes once deemed too raw or off-brand suddenly became viable. Cody dismissing Meri's grief. Cody shutting down Janelle's voice. Cody mocking Christine behind the scenes. Emotional shutdowns, subtle gaslighting, years of quiet erosion, all now deemed worthy of airing. The shift wasn't just in the editing room. 'Twas structural. 'Twas philosophical. TLC, the very network that had once enabled the silencing of Meri, was now shifting focus to amplify it. And it showed. The season 19 trailer dropped with the usual soft piano music and slow-motion family footage, but something felt off, hollow, different. And then the realization hit like a gut punch. Cody and Robyn weren't in it. Not once. No couch confessionals, no leadership lectures. No teary Robyn speeches about loyalty. Just Meri, Christine, Janelle. The women who had been sidelined for nearly 2 decades were now front and center. The survivors, the truth tellers, the ones who had endured, adapted, and evolved. At first, fans thought it was a fluke, maybe a teaser for a single episode. But then the press kit went out. No Cody, no Robyn. Their names weren't even in the credits. And just like that, Sister Wives entered a new era, one where the show finally centered the very women who had been voiceless for too long. A symbolic dethroning, a reckoning, a rebranding. Robyn, once the untouched centerpiece, now felt like a relic of a darker time. Her cries of, "I just want us to get along," were now heard through the lens of manipulation. Her long silences, once seen as empathy, now read as strategy. And Meri, she wasn't unstable. She was unshackled. Her voice, once trimmed in editing bays and drowned in Robyn's cries, now rang out across every platform. Her message wasn't just heard, it was felt. And Cody, his absence became more powerful than his presence ever was. For the first time, the man who had shaped the show's identity wasn't just off-screen, he was irrelevant. And with each new week, each new episode, each new piece of unfiltered content from Meri, Christine, or Janelle's, the audience made one thing clear. They were done with the fiction. They wanted the truth, and they were finally getting it. You're watching Starspill USA, and if you thought the cease and desist letter, the 18-day suspension, or the sticky note were the end, think again. The real Sister Wives story is just beginning. This time, it's being told by the women who survived it.
And I'm like, that will never be me.
The separation has been coming on for years and years and years. It just has been. Even in Vegas, it was obvious where he spent his time.
This wasn't a one-off incident. It was a cultural and narrative shift that cracked open a decade-long illusion. And what spilled out wasn't just reality, it was decades of suppressed truth, edited silence, and carefully curated manipulation, all finally laid bare in a way that even TLC couldn't ignore anymore. No matter how many filters, fades, or background piano swells they tried to paste over it. Behind the scenes, it was even messier than the meltdown on camera. Because within mere days of Kody's unhinged tirade that resulted in his abrupt 18-day removal from filming, internal emails began leaking raw, unfiltered, time-stamped proof that the network had known all along what it was suppressing. One memo circulated among mid-level producers and marketing leads stated flatly, "We are reassessing the focus of the upcoming season. Viewer sentiment is overwhelmingly in support of the other wives. We need to realign accordingly." Another, more scathing and marked confidential, went deeper. "We can no longer protect the Brown family image at the expense of truth. This is no longer sustainable storytelling." That line hit like a confession. We can no longer protect the image because that's exactly what sister wives had done for years. The signs had been there. The way Meri's words were often clipped. The way Janelle's doubts were framed as mood swings. The way Christine's breaking point was treated like a plot twist instead of a cry for help. For over a decade, TLC had edited around the dysfunction, preserving the illusion of a benevolent patriarch struggling to keep a big, loving family together, when in reality, it was a slow, public unraveling fueled by emotional shutdowns, gaslighting, favoritism, and silence, so much silence. Now, the mask was off. Internally, divisions erupted within TLC. Some longtime producers, those who had been part of the original launch back in 2010, pushed to preserve what was left of the Cody-centric brand. But a newer wave of producers, many of them women, younger and less invested in preserving male authority, advocated fiercely for a shift to hand the mic. Finally, to the women who had been silenced for too long, and they had the data to prove it. Meri's raw porch-side video. Over 3 million views in 72 hours. Christine's memoir. Sold out before it even hit shelves. Janelle's quiet, steady presence. Resonating with viewers across demographics. This wasn't just a casting adjustment. It was a moral recalibration. A reckoning. TLC had spent years backing the wrong protagonist. Now they were scrambling to catch up to the audience, who had already chosen their heroes. And while the network quietly shifted direction, the internet erupted with a voice of its own. Not from the tabloids, not from TMZ, not from traditional media, but from TikTok. In a haunting, calmly delivered 45-minute video that would go viral across every platform within hours. The speaker, a woman named Robyn Brown's estranged half-sister, no flashy edits, no intro music. Just one chilling invitation. If you want to see the real Robyn, take a seat. And people did. Over 10 million of them in the first day alone. Belle didn't yell, she didn't rage. She recounted cold, clear, precise growing up in Robyn's shadow. Watching her master the art of using tears like daggers, guilt like chains, and fragility like armor. She weaponized sympathy, Belle said, and TLC gave her a national platform to perfect it. It was, for many fans, the moment everything clicked into place. The sobbing breakdowns, the fragile voice, the performative faith, the dramatic pauses. It wasn't empathy, was strategy. And Cody, he was the perfect mark. The audience, mostly women, understood instantly, not because they knew Robyn, but because they knew the type. They had seen her in church groups, in office meetings, in marriages, in boardrooms, women who cry not because they're hurt, but because they know you'll hesitate if they do. Women who turn accountability into cruelty and make you feel like the villain for asking a question. The comment sections filled with women saying, "It's what my sister did. This is what my boss did. It's what I lived with for 10 years. It wasn't just a video, it was a mirror. Suddenly, this wasn't just about Meri anymore. It wasn't just about sister wives. It was about every woman who had ever been told to be quiet for the sake of family. Image or peace. Meri didn't just break a silence, she shattered a cycle. And when she spoke, thousands, millions spoke with her. Not with rage, but with recognition. The true collapse of Kody Brown's carefully crafted persona didn't come from a scandal or a leak it. came from Meri's voice. It's unfiltered, unapologetic, unafraid. A voice they tried to edit, to contractually muzzle, to dismiss as emotional. A voice Cody tried to bury with a final act of desperation, a $230,000 lawsuit, and an attempted gag order filed under the guise of defamation and brand damage. But this time, the courts didn't bend. The judge tossed the order out like the PR stunt it was, and Meri stood firm. She didn't cry, she didn't clap back. She simply held up a draft NDA, signed not by a lawyer, but by Robyn, dated quietly. From 2020, proof that the silencing wasn't just Cody's, it was Robyn's too. And Meri looked into the camera and said the line that would echo through every reaction video, every fan forum, every episode breakdown on YouTube: "You don't get to control my story anymore." That wasn't just a mic drop. That was emancipation. It was closure, not only for her, but for Christine, for Janelle, for every viewer who'd watched season after season, sensing something off, but not knowing how deep it went. And here's the truth that no one at TLC anticipated. You were part of this, the viewers, the ones who noticed when Meri was missing, the ones who clocked Robyn's convenient tears. It's the ones who rewound scenes because something didn't feel right. The fans on Reddit threads, in YouTube comments, in TikTok stitches and duets. You kept asking the questions the network refused to answer. You didn't fall for the edits. You saw through the script. You were the audience that wouldn't be manipulated. And now, you're the reason the story is finally being told the way it always should have been, honestly. So if you ever wondered whether your comments mattered, whether your instincts were valid, whether your quiet discomfort with the narrative meant something, the answer is yes. You were right. You saw the signs. You felt the shift. And now, you're watching a new era unfold. One where the voices that were once silenced are now amplified. And if you're watching this breakdown here on Starspill USA, just know you're in the right place. We've got more truth, more receipts, and more of the reality behind the reality TV. Because the story isn't over. But at long last, it's being told on the right terms: Meri's, Christine's, Janelle's, and yours. So drop a comment. Were you one of the people who always sensed the cracks in the facade? Don't forget to subscribe to Starspill USA for more breakdowns, exposes, and long overdue truths. Because this is where the real story lives, now not in a confessional couch monologue. Not in a network-approved edit, but right here, raw and real. And this time, no one's muting it.